Welcome back to Sika Strength and welcome back to the Sika Stand news show. As always, brought to you by the Sika Strength app. And as we've been doing the last few weeks, just want to bring you a quick little PB before we start the news show from one of our programs. This is Colin. He's 6'4" and he hit this 240 kilo back squat as 10 kilo PB after the back squat program. So it's not just those squats in the hundreds, it's also into those 200s, and it's also for those tall guys. And you can squat nice and big and heavy, even if you are a big, tall guy.
You know, we often comment on tall lads having great squats and how good it is technically.
Yeah.
This is very fast as well.
Yeah, it's 240 as well.
Yeah.
240 is crazy.
It's not to be sniffled at.
Now, unfortunately, Tian Toa is coming in off the back of that in the start of the new show with this 310 kilo back squat in his Team China polo shirt. A little known fact about Dara is that if he could do everything in polo shirts, he would, but unfortunately the friction with his nipples is too much. But Dara, what do you think of this 310?
The polo shirt makes it for me, to be honest.
Yeah.
My views on polo shirts are probably a bit outspoken, but that is an absolutely gorgeous looking squat.
If you kind of cover the bottom half of the screen, he could be doing that in cords or slacks.
Slacks,
or chinos.
A beige pair of chinos, maybe.
He just walked in from the IT office.
His squats have been getting consistently heavier over the last few months. But the one thing with the Chinese team is you're never really sure when these videos are from.
I think Tian Toa's are pretty recent. Usually you can judge by the KT tape applied liberally to his shoulder and trap and back. So 310 kilos is 10 kilos off his best back squat. Now you might remember Tian Toa was done 320 kilos when he was at 85. Possibly one of the greatest Olympic weightlifter squats of all time in terms of, body weight ratio. It was done when he was overweight in 85. So, getting beyond 300 as a weightlifter, especially as a non-super, is insane. And Tian Toa's casualness, 300 for 4. So I would love if he'd do like 325 or 330 is just not a last hurrah, because maybe he might keep going. It's not that he couldn't, but there's when you're a professional athlete, life is not certain.
I see that as raising your back leg and marking your territory there.
Yeah.
Nobody's in doubt then.
I think after Euros he's not going, or Yeon is not going. How fucked up is that situation?
Yeah.
That we're not seeing two of the greatest weightlifters of this generation because of the qualification rules.
I think that's the sins of their fathers coming back for them.
310 for Tian Toa. Hopefully we get to see him do something. Now his baby brother, who's not actually his baby brother, Panyhua, with this 160 in hot pink Lusations. I'm pretty sure I started this trend and I'm going to carry it through. I'm going to carry it forward.
I don't think you started it, but I hope you did. Some people did actually think they were brothers in last week's news show, so we probably do just need to clear that up.
Sorry, on the hot pink trend, lots of people were like, whoa, the hot pink is really good. And I was like, yeah, it is. So 160, really, really like the extension on this. Super straight, super close.
It is, technically it's very, very nice. He's 18 years old as well, isn't he?
17 I think.
17 years old.
Yeah, 17.
It is something I think we forget, that many or most of the kind of elites or greatest of all time weightlifters are hitting, not their peak, but they're hitting those major adult weights at 17 and 18. So it is, I think when we see it today, we think, oh, this is so strange, or this is amazing, or that this is kind of out of the blue. Many of your greatest of all time weightlifters will have been hitting some of their biggest numbers, or very close to their biggest numbers, this early on in their career.
So there was a very famous, in terms of weightlifting, Rog Macklem. So he passed away last year. He was a very famous weightlifting photographer, and he'd kind of collected a statistic, or he'd quoted a statistic, that if previous years gone by, if you weren't a junior world champion, your chances of becoming a senior world champion were massively low. Some people I think of always is like Artem Okullov hitting 180 as an 85 when he was just 18 years old in Russia. We had Ilya clean and jerking 225 as an overweight 85 when he was 16. So crazy numbers.
Yeah.
Big thing with this though is we get this sometimes, and we kind of see it as a general thought process on some people, is that the Chinese have a different way of lifting. But there was only one way to lift a barbell. There was only one way, because we all have similar bodies. Now, the form might look different and certain features might be slightly different, but everybody follows who lifts big weights, largely, except for Carlos Nazar for some reason, follows appropriate technical model. So when you talk about good technique, you're not talking about the style at which they lift or certain minor quirks that don't really impact the lift. I'm talking about the barbell center of mass and their center of mass moving across the lift, and all elite Chinese lifters follow that to a large degree. and we have it varying degrees across different countries, but the better lifters usually tend closer to that ideal technique.
Yeah, the funny thing as well is people think about the Chinese system being in some way unique or very, very different. The Chinese system was developed by Russian coaches going to China, and then that information sharing happening in the kind of 60s and 70s, the system we see now. So it really isn't this thing that's drastically different or this thing that's being kept behind some sort of iron curtain that we don't know about. Their system and even their technical model to a massive extent is the same thing or is of the same genesis.
Next, we've got, so I don't know his name because when you translate his name from Korean, it just says fresh green. So that's what his name translates by, I assume, but I could be wrong. It's not his name. So he's a South Korean national weightlifter. He is 61 kilos. So we've got actually a couple of lifts from him. The first one is 135, but I'm going to look at this 130 first. And this is incredible, like a crazy lifting.
Yeah. The kind of high block stuff, it's so crisp.
Yeah.
The high block stuff is it's very kind of in conjunction with the Korean system. They do seem to enjoy it a lot. But the big thing that stands out for me here is how well set his shoulders are. Like how well developed his shoulders are, how much he tenses up his shoulders and his upper back prior to starting the lift. Obviously, we talk about that kind of upper back extension a lot here. We've been talking about it a lot over the last few months. But especially in that side-on view of the 130 or 135, it's really, really clear and obvious how much he prioritizes that in his setup.
You can actually see it in this block clean. So if you watch this 165 and 170 clean and jerk from blocks, remember he's a 61, you can see that back position. You can really see his shoulder blades set and pulling back. Crazy.
Yeah, and I think if you're a bigger athlete or maybe a slightly tighter athlete, you'll see that position, you'll say, I'm never going to be able to achieve it. I'll never get that level of extension in my mid back or my upper back. But the important thing is that you're trying, like you're contracting those muscles. You're making sure that it's as strong a position as possible, even though you mightn't have that kind of hyperextended position.
Yeah, you're never too fat to have a strong back. Is what Dara's saying. Here's this 220 kilo back squat. So just once again, he is 61 kilos competing. So probably 63 or 64 and probably no more in training. The really interesting thing about the Koreans, the way they squat is all very, very, very similar. They favor what I call a very 50-50 squat, so a very even distribution between the quads and the ass. So they break at the hips and the knees at the same time. So they end up in this slightly inclined bottom position, but their backs and glutes, hips, knee extensors are all working in conjunction. They have really strong backs. And the quality of their squat then is very, 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 very consistent across all weights, even from the supers all the way down to the 61 kilo lifter. So it's something that I'd be very interested in seeing. I wish when more time we were in Korea last year was to investigate how they thought the squat was taught, but we unfortunately were limited. So I must see if I can reach out to someone further and see what they think of the squat, because I would be very interested to know. Now, sticking with Korea, South Korea, just to specify, we've got Lee Sang-yong, who's moving up to the 73s. 73 world record is 204 by Ratmat Irwin, as you may remember. And here we have him doing 190 kilo clean and jerk. This was a 6 kilo PB.
My God. If ever there was a man who needed to move up in weight class because he has so much muscle on his frame, I think Lee Sang is the ultimate realization of that.
What motivation that is to move up. So it's a risky maneuver. We've got obviously Ratmat dominating the class currently. Shi Jiang is as of yet unknown, although currently one of the greatest lifters ever and has the potential to do insane numbers. So to move up is probably his only option, but the motivation is obviously real here to hit those big numbers. He's 6 kilo PB already. I could certainly see him clean and jerking 200. In competition, who knows? It's very hard to know how things affects the body weight, but 190 kilos.
Yeah, I think he's certainly one of those main names there when you look at the top 3 or 4 people in the world who are going to hit massive weights at that body weight. He's definitely up there for contention. And he looks to be even bigger now.
So you know what? Last week, before I realised he was moving up, I was like, oh, his abs look a little bit blurrier compared to the normal, like, shredded abs. But I didn't want to say anything, obviously, because I'm not going harassing someone for gaining 0.5% of body weight. But now that makes sense that he's just filling out into that 73s. So maybe he'll probably get closer to 77 or 78 and then cut down for comp. His quads definitely are filling out as well.
Yeah. It's worth saying as well, we're still a fair ways out from that Olympics. Like,
Yeah, but the months go by fast.
yeah.
We also have this 152 kilo snatch. Basically, the text in the Instagram post with this is him saying that he didn't think he was going to snatch over 150 ever again. He said he hit 150 like 6 years ago. He said he was just coming in, didn't even think about training, and he hit the 152 after missing 150.
It's interesting as well to see not hitting a PB for so many years.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously something's working well. Obviously some timing is working out where he's a few months out from the biggest Olympics of his career and he's suddenly hitting these PBs.
So realistically, if he needs a chance at probably bronze in Paris, he's going to need at least 160, 200, but probably, I think that's probably a good shout for bronze. But everyone else is going to be coming out of the gate super hot as well. Interesting how his technique is, he's moved back to move his feet a little bit more. So you can see as the weights get heavier, he's moved his feet out wider, but he's brought his stance in a little bit closer. So that's interesting. Is one of the things these coaches actually mentioned that they were talking about his technique when we were there, is that, they kind of needed a change in it, but he was reluctant to change technique. But
It's a strange technical quirk that, most people, as their weights get heavier, they move their feet less.
Yes.
Because they over pull the bar more, their feet are stuck to the ground a bit more. They don't have the same height. Their centre of mass isn't as tall. And so it's harder for them to pull their feet off the ground. In this case, moving them more as the weight gets heavier is a testament to his talent, really.
But it's also just from that argument there. So sometimes people take Dara's thought process and go in the wrong logic. So they're like, so I should practice not moving my feet.
Yes, yeah.
But the issue there is that just because it's hard to have better technique at heavy weights doesn't mean you strive to not correct that technique, which is very important.
In the exact same way where it's hard to keep a straight back while deadlifting big heavy weights.
Now, here we've got Lee as well doing 200 for 15. So last week he did 190 for 17 pieces as the translation goes. But this is 200 for 15. He said he thinks he should try 2 more.
So conceivably, we're talking about next week going for 210 for 12.
I hope he goes for 200 for 20, so at least one of us could do it. I bet his teammates who are really supportive, as we've seen, would count for him properly.
I wonder, can he count it on his own, Owen?
No, I'll tell you what, Dara, if you're trying to do 200 for 20, it's very hard to count.
I can only imagine.
It's very difficult to count. I can barely count past 3 sometimes when I'm squatting or doing any reps. So 200 for 15 reps. He's obviously just trying to do as much volume as possible. Mike Mensa crowd are upset right now at him doing all that volume to gain muscle. It's not working either.
No, it's not working at all.
He's so skinny.
He's very under-muscled.
Oh, he's so under-musced.
It's a great example of that kind of 50-50 squat you were talking about earlier. Very much the posterior chains involved there.
Yes. Yeah. I must reach out to some friends and see if someone would have a chance to talk about that. Now, over to Japan, sick with the Asian weightlifters. We've got Rakuei. Remember, he's 81, 18 years old, and he snatched 154 for a senior world record, a national junior world record, senior world record, a national senior record, a national junior record, and a high school record. And yep, he's still in high school. We call it secondary school in Ireland. UK people call it that as well. 154 at 18.
And it's an absolutely lovely 154 as well.
Oh, yeah.
It is. He's a major rising star. Obviously, we've spoken about him multiple times in the last few weeks, but there seems to be no ceiling on what he's going to achieve so far.
His flames on his quads are apt. I think that's fair. If someone can have those, it's certainly him.
I think the size of his quads are apt.
We've also got a 193 kilo clean and jerk for him. So again, similar national record, junior record, and high school record. Again, 193 kilos, 81, 18 years old. We Lift Weights had a training vlog kind of up of his high school team training the other day. Mm-hmm. It's good to see, like we kind of lament about the fact that not many countries have the big national systems that we would have previously seen, and particularly in the underage side of things, weightlifting being more of a part-time sport and not necessarily specialised in too much. In his case, they definitely have that system. Like they've a high school team. The high school team are training together, then they go to class, then they train together, then they go to class. And it's very much the kind of national team structure that you'd expect from an athlete of that level, rather than it being kind of him and his coach out on their own trying to figure things out. What I hope is that they actually do get some good studying in, because a lot of other countries, when you have that education combined with training is that there's no actual education going on. It's usually just the front to pay the athletes. Next, we've got Yeon doing 170 kilos for 3 from the high blocks. So last year he'd been kind of injured and, he's been coming back into form. We'd seen him do like 191 from blocks. And this 170 for 3 is a good indicator.
It's never struck me previously how long his arms are.
They're pretty long, actually.
But looking at that, his grip is almost all the way to the edge. Mm-hmm. And he's still... It's not like he's struggling to get it up to the hip, but he's just very long. It's... Where are you falling on the kind of pull snatch?
Well, it's 170, so I think you just can tell people fuck off.
Yes.
I feel like it's what you do 170 like that.
Yeah.
I think in that kind of case, so you can't use that logic all the time with everything, but in this particular case, I feel like if you're doing 170 like this, everyone in weightlifting knows if you make the third rep, it's a triple. Everybody knows that. Ever since I started weightlifting, everyone has known that's the rule. If you make the third rep.
And in the exact same way where if you were going for a single and it turns into a double because you've missed the first one, then it's just a double PB.
I get really upset myself when consistently the second rep is better than the first. I gotta keep snatching until it's better.
One thing I always think when the blocks are that low, just when you're dropping like first and second rep there, that bar is so close to the tops of your knees.
Yeah.
Like that is...
Yes, that's true actually. But it's never going to hit him.
No.
Next, we've got Julia Miserendino put up this 140 kilo rack jerk with some motivational stuff from Dwayne Johnson, aka The Rock. Now, a lot of people are wondering why she wasn't at Euros, and you might be like, oh, Owen's going to tell us, and I don't know either. But it is 140 kilo rack jerk in the exceptional style of the Italians who normally do very good rack jerks.
That looks very pedestrian.
Super well timed with the oscillation of the barbell.
Yeah, that looks like a 90% jerk, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like that's definitely nowhere near maximal in her case. I'd love to see what her top end jerk is.
I would be very interested to see why she didn't go to Euros. So she'd been to Saudi Arabia, so she's obviously still current on the team. We haven't seen anything about injury or anything, and she seems to be in good shape there. So Thailand is coming up soon in, I think, like 4 or 5 weeks. So maybe we'll see her there. And she hasn't posted anything and we haven't heard anything. So if anyone knows, do feel free to leave it in the comments because we got loads of people ask us and I saw it lots of places, but we've honestly no idea why.
Am I right in saying Thailand's the last chance for European athletes to qualify?
I think it might be the last chance for everyone.
Okay.
Last chance. Yeah, because China are going to Thailand, I think.
Okay.
So I think everyone's last chance. Big up the boys for the last chance. Now, here we've got Abby Cooper. Or Abigail Cooper, depending on what you want to say. She's squat jerking 124 kilos. What is it with American female lifters squat jerking massive weights?
This is absolutely insane.
It's crazy.
It is absolutely insane.
Such confidence at the bottom.
Yeah. The squat jerk as well, you have absolutely no idea until you're fully stopped moving at the bottom. You know? Like at every point it feels like you're going to miss the lift. It is unbelievable. Do you know she squat jerk in competition?
I think so, but she's a 64 kilo lifter as well, so very, very close to that double bodyweight squat jerk, which would be 240 for you, is it?
America has particularly female weightlifters coming out of the woodwork from nowhere with phenomenal levels of talent.
Absolutely. Because sticking with that train, we've got Ella Nicholson. She is jerking 144 for a single, then she does a drop down set of 125 for a power jerk double. So the 144 is of course a split jerk, and then she moves down to a very casual, almost push jerk, a no foot power jerk with 125. But the 144 is sick. 144
is so good.
So good.
That stability overhead is insane.
Yeah, you can really see it on the power jerk.
Yeah,
it is a power jerk. Yeah,
it's For that weight, for 144 kilos to be that stable overhead, and particularly she doesn't look like a very heavy athlete, you know, it's not like she has massive excessive pressing strength. It's insanely impressive.
Yeah, outrageous.
Yeah.
Then we had the Oceania Championships from our Australians and Fijis and Samoan and New Zealand lifters and everyone else in that region, competing in their kind of last continental competition like the Europeans, and Pan Am's going on at the moment as well. So these championships are finished. Pan Am's are still going on, so we'll cover some of those lifts next week. But we've got Don Opologe, I think is how you say it, He did 175 kilo snatch. Now, Dan is a obviously very powerful young man, and I assume he's moving up to the 102s. They didn't say his body weight here in this competition, but it's either 102 or 89 if he's got the Olympic hopefuls. So I'm imagining, although I think he might be an 89. So this, if he is an 89 for this 175, that's really on the limit of what anyone else is doing, pretty much.
Geez, he pulls under so fast. It is, like that's a pull under speed of a mid 60 kilo lifter. So good.
Now, sticking with those championships, we've David Liti, so New Zealand's best weightlifter at the moment, clean and jerking 236 kilos. I think this might be a clean and jerk PB for him. Almost certain it's a competition clean and jerk PB for him. So 236 kilos is wild for David, who's an absolute animal.
Yeah, look, it's a very, very good, strong, powerful lift. But the major thing that stands out for me is he goes over to the side after the lift, right? And picks somebody up who I assume is his coach, or maybe it's a family member or something. And how utterly giant he looks then.
Massive.
Like, he looks big standing behind the barbell, but he doesn't look crazy big. But when you see him here, his forearm is the size of a normal person's leg.
It's actually when he puts her down that he looks even more ginormous.
Yeah, it's just crazy.
So we see some huge lifts from David Liti regularly from, squatting and push pressing and rack jerks. So he made Tokyo, so I assume he's gunning hard, of course, for the the Paris Games. Maybe New Zealand could host the Olympics at some stage. Now, moving on from there to Russia, we've got Misha Koklayev, famed all-round strong weightlifter, powerlifter.
Big strong guy,
strong man, doing 350 kilos from the low block. He seems to be working his way up in this weight. Now, these are kind of baby weights for him in terms of his all-time total, although he has obviously since retired. He's in his 40s now, but the 350 is moving pretty handy as he's laughing after.
I think it speaks to his general gravitas as a lifter that he's in his 40s and 350 kilos are baby weights.
Yeah, it's like a joke.
Like, that looks so easy for him.
Yeah.
It's nowhere near maximal. Obviously, like, the plate skiing up off the floor does help a little bit. It's not like it's necessarily very high blocks either. Still probably 3 or 4 inches below the line of the knee. Like, it is the lowest of low blocks realistically if you're looking from a weightlifting perspective. But 350 kilos moving like that is just absolutely insane.
Do you know what me and Misha share in terms of talent?
A love for baggy t-shirts?
Oh, no, that too, but he can also play the accordion.
Really?
Yeah.
Is it a button accordion?
No, I think he plays a piano. No one plays button accordion this side of Ireland. So sticking with Russia, we've got Artem Okullov. So he seems to be throwing down the gauntlet to Arli Mendes. So he does 140 kilos for a set of 4 above the knee hang snatch, which is absolutely his specialty. As you might remember, he did 190 kilos as an 85 in the hang snatch. Sorry, set of 5 here. So maybe
nobody pulls under the bar better than him.
No, Arli's pretty
fast.
Arli's a bit more wild and uncontrolled.
Yes.
Artem is very precise with his pull under.
Yeah, it's just so good. His foot position is kind of weird because I don't remember his feet being that wide for his normal snatch.
Yeah, and he doesn't seem to do that normally. He is always kind of wide in his snatch compared to what he probably should be. But he starts off the first rep with a relatively narrow one. But
yes,
it was easier for him to keep his hips closer to the barbell as a way of cheating the hang snatch. It's not cheating, obviously, but making the hang snatch more favourable with his leverages. Almost a sumo hang snatch, you might say.
Yeah, like it's...
Ew! Boo! No,
obviously, though, in this case, this isn't cheating.
Well, no, because it's snatching. You can't cheat. That's what I love about the snatch clean jerk. You can't cheat them.
It's just overhead or it's
not. It goes overhead or it doesn't go overhead. Sometimes people are like, he used straps, but no one cares.
Nobody cares. I could watch this all day long. You know the way some gyms in their lobby have like the CrossFit Games playing in the background? I could watch this set of hang snatches forever.
Forever. This is 170 from last week, which we covered, so we won't go over that again. Now, here is Morgan. Morgan used to be Morgan Lifts, but he's Morgan Mick 102, so Morgan McCullough. So a very great lifter from the US. I think he's in his early 20s now. He used to be a forever 15-year-old as well, lifting big weights, but he managed to get out of the time warp. And here's 160 for 3 singles.
It's very, very nice, isn't it?
His technique has improved drastically.
Yeah, he lifts so differently than he used to when he was younger. Obviously, the weights were insane when he was a younger athlete, but these lifts are so consistent, so nice, so crisp. Am I correct in saying he used to be Mad Lifts 15?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Did I not just say that?
I think you said Morgan. But yeah, insanely good.
So 160 kilos from blocks. The 160 from blocks is like a nice number, isn't it? It'd be real nice for Morgan knows 170 from blocks, which kind of looks like he could do in that session.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, finish last but not least for weightlifting, Carlos put up this 224 kilo clean and jerk, so it's 1 kilo over the world record before the Europeans, and a lot of people didn't see it, but luckily someone saved it here. So 224 kilo clean and jerk. Carlos, of course, in 89, 19 years old.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. It's insane to be doing this. I assume, was this 3 weeks out from Euros?
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I have no idea. It could be the day before.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It would be so insane to think that he's doing these kind of weights that close to a major competition. Now, I know in the case of Euros isn't that massively important when it's in the year of an Olympics, but still, it's still a major international competition. That medal would still mean something to him. So it's crazy to see just how heavy he went previous to it.
So the interesting thing about Carlos, of course, is of his technique is very strange. And he said himself he needs to correct his technique, and his slash technique definitely improved. And I know Gabriel was talking to him about his technique, and it's just so interesting. Like, could he be more efficient? Could he get an extra few kilos out of the barbell if he cleaned up his technique and adjusted some things? And I'd say, in theory, yes. But is the reality, could he do that? Could he improve his technique? How difficult is it to improve at those weights? You know, those 220, it is very, very tough, especially when they're such large world record weights. You know, they're getting to 90% of those is a massive number to be practicing appropriate technique and stuff like that. And then you've got to win competitions, you got to get the Olympics. So it's an interesting dilemma. He's obviously very, very young, but as of right now, it's not doing him any disservice. But, you know, the difference between the Olympic gold could be 2 or 3 kilos. And to be honest, right now, it's not obviously the time to do it. And before anyone says anything, this is literally his own words. He did say that he needs to improve his technique. He said he relies too much on strength.
And he definitely has plenty of strength. It's interesting in a case like his as well, where he conceivably has 3 more Olympic quads in him.
Yeah.
Like, he has 3 opportunities to have a small amount of time off, then rebuild, then maybe address some errors, and then go through an actual full cycle into an Olympics again.
Whoa.
Like, he could conceivably do 3 more of those as an adult, where you could see a drastically different technical model technique being used by him, maybe in 4 years' time or 8 years' time or 12 years' time.
What the real issue, if anyone's wondering about what the tactical issue, the main issue is just in the second pull, once the barbell gets above the knee, it's the amount of forward horizontal hip movement. So he's got a huge amount of forward movement where he ends up shoulders behind the barbell, knees are very, very far under the barbell, but the weight is super forward. So he ends up just pushing the barbell away with his hips into it. He ends up jumping forward underneath it. But of course, it's a testament to him how strong he is that he's able to complete the lift no problem. But it's certainly noteworthy for his lifting. Now, Kyle Curvey, aka Kyle Tiger Curvey, did one of the most ridiculous powerlifting performances ever. So he did 400 kilo squat, 277.5 kilo bench, and a 390 kilo deadlift.
Yeah, I'm just going to say it. We've been looking at this video kind of all the way throughout the day today, and this is probably the most impressive thing I've ever seen come out of powerlifting as a sport. I know there's kind of different ways of scoring it and the dot score, whatever, and I'm not sure if how high this ranks in terms of all-time dot scores, but just the sheer numbers here are so absolutely insane. And those sheer numbers to be hit in competition, all 3 at the same time, it just it kind of blew me away, to be honest. Like, the squat looks so good and strong. The bench press is absolutely phenomenal, and you'll see in the deadlift in a sec, the deadlift is almost laughable how fast it moves.
Yeah, the deadlift is the craziest thing where you definitely had like another 20 kilos. I think probably the thing that you probably like most about it, if I had to guess, was that there's a point in powerlifting where if you get very heavy, if you get a lot of excess body fat, things, while still impressive, are slightly reduced. You know, if your body weight's 200 kilos and you're squatting 400 kilos or something, it's like, okay, 400 is still a crazy number, but it's still kind of like, oh, okay, you're pretty heavy. But then when you just get someone like Kyle who's kind of at the limit of massiveness without being fat, and then he does something like this, it's kind of where I think a lot of people appreciate it, where it's just like, that's insane.
And it's also the limit of massiveness where he still looks kind of athletic.
Yeah.
Like, he looks like he could play American football in the shape he's in now, you know. It's just like, I'm excited to watch this deadlift again due to the fact that it's so insanely fast.
Yeah, this 390, so conventional, and this kind of looks like an opener, to be honest. It looks literally like he could be doing 2 more attempts after this. It's ludicrous.
Nice.
So I assume this is just to secure the bag and get the win and the performance. And if anyone actually knows the specific dots placement of this, I'd be very interested to know. He also did that without a belt, just FYI.
Is that beltless?
Yeah. So he wore a belt for the squat, but he just didn't wear a belt for that. He wore wrist wraps.
Oh, it's absolutely insane.
Did he not wear a belt? Sorry. Yeah, no, he didn't wear a belt for that deadlift. What the Jesus Christ.
You can see as he finishes that deadlift what an absolute monster of a human being he is.
Yeah, or if you just look at him next to other people.
Yeah.
Or if you look at his lifts, you'd also come to that.
Yes.
Now, speaking of monsters of human beings, we've got BJ Stone with an unhappy end to his training block with this 300 kilo front squat. So he said not the top end he wanted today, but it's equal to PB, so can't really complain given the last 5 to 6 months of circumstances. 300 kilo, clean grip, full depth, so easy. How's he?
Such a good position.
How did he miss more than this is what I want to know. Or maybe he stopped.
Yeah, it just looks like the actual squat itself looks very, very easy. As he passes parallel on the way up, he has so much speed. He's not being pulled out of position at all. One thing that would come to mind in the case of BJ, he has the kind of front rack of a strong man who has a good front rack. And that's not to be derogatory in any way, but it's not the perfect front rack position. It's not a full grip of the bar. The elbows aren't perfectly pointed straight ahead. And so you might think that if he goes 310 or 315 or 320 as his next attempt, maybe he has some kind of forward caving. Bar starts to move and he just fails it from there.
Yeah, very often front squats can, for some lifters, just be either fully easy made or easy missed. So I assume, and this is the case, if BJ doesn't post any more attempts, this is
300 kilos.
Yeah, that looks like a last warm-up.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So here we have got Sir Dave __. He is a British powerlifter, and this is 363 kilos for a double, so that's 800 pounds, and he has quite the unique squatting style.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, like, so when you look initially at Sir Dave's squat, you'll see somebody burying a low bar squat, right? And you'll see very, very good depth, super consistent across both reps. But the real kind of anomaly here is fully vertical shins until he gets to parallel. Most people at that point stop, or a lot of powerlifters who low bar squat tend to stop at that point. In Dave's case, though, when he gets to that fully vertical shin position and his femur is parallel to the ground, then he brings in some ankle dorsiflexion, then he allows his knees to move forward and drops his hips even deeper. So it is interesting. It's certainly something we don't see too many powerlifters doing, but it gets that depth in very, very easily.
So next we've got Andrew Kyle Tang. So you might have seen Kyle on the show before. So this is 225 kilos or 495 pounds for some high bar, high reps. So 8s, 6s and 5s. So Kyle has got possibly one of the nicest high bar squats from any powerlifter. It is very high bar, very upright, super consistent. Depth is all the way down, 80G, super nice squat.
100%. And I think if you're a powerlifter looking to develop that leg strength, looking to use the high bars, we've seen many kind of all-time greats using the high bar to develop their low bar squat and become better at it. This is how your high bar squat should look. They should be absolutely ass to grass. They should be as vertical a torso as you could humanly muster. And in this case, the speed just makes it even better. You know, they're super consistent, no grindy reps. He's getting in some really valuable volume. One interesting case is like when you look at someone like bodybuilder Mike Israetel. These look very similar to Mike Israetel's squats, where he's really focusing on the quads, he's really focusing on developing that work capacity in the quads, and it makes perfect sense why a bodybuilder would use them as well as a powerlifter.
What I really like is how consistent his back position is. So his elbows are fully rigid. They're vertical, which normally isn't great for a lot of people, but his back is obviously so strong that he's able to maintain just the same amount of extension, same back position, all throughout the lifts, especially through higher rep sets. 8s is very, very high for a high bar squat. So it's very, very impressive that he's able to maintain the rigidity of that. And it's probably a testament to both his position, but also just the amount of assistance work he clearly does for his upper body. Now, sticking with someone else who does a lot of assistance work for their upper body, we got sent this video of Sam Sulek squatting. They said 7 plates, but it's actually 6 plates by side. So it's 260 kilos. So in his typical heels elevated fashion, no belts and seemingly no sleeves or knee wraps on this. He does it for 3 very, very easy reps, but then he fails the 4th. But it's very likely he was at the end of some higher volume squatting coming into this. And he's just so blasé when he misses it. He's just like, oh, man.
I think particularly when you see how sweaty the T-shirt is, he's probably done a lot of other work in that session. It is interesting, right? And a lot of the time we'll see weightlifters, powerlifters, crossfitters kind of throwing away an entire session and their head being fully messed up when a lift doesn't go great or a lift is too heavy and they can't make it. And then suddenly the rest of the session is kind of blown away, or they don't concentrate on it because they feel like they failed in some way. I think Sam's kind of attitude here of, oh, I knew it was going to be too heavy, went for it anyway, went and tried to make it, did my best, still got some really valuable reps in there. But I think if you're in a session and things start to go poorly like that, it is better just to lift your head up and keep working, keep continuing on. If you get one puncture, you don't suddenly go along and puncture all 3 other tires. You just need to keep working through the session.
So one of the interesting things here is Sam has heels elevated, so he's wearing what looks to be Converse, and then he has a plate underfoot. So a lot of people have kind of asked about that when Sam kind of first rose to prominence, and it's something we'll use in training where we'll normally use it for heels elevated goblet squats. You might have seen in some of our programs, or you'll seen it in heels elevated zombie squats, zombie front squats. So you just get a huge amount of forward knee travel, so far in excess of what you could do without weightlifting shoes on. Typically we'll get people actually to still wear the weightlifting shoes, so they'll squat on top of a plate, bumper plate, or a bumper plate plus their weightlifting shoes. So we really want to get as much forward knee travel as possible. It's a good alternative to the belt squat. If you don't have a good way of setting up the belt squat, it's a good option to put that primary focus on the quads. You still are loading the back, unlike the belt squat as much, but if it's not an option, it is a good way of doing it. Now, what Sam is doing for his really heavy squats isn't ideal, just because there's so much space between where his heel is contacting and then underneath his arch and his foot. There's essentially nothing underneath, and then the plate of course is curved, so he has to stand probably a little bit closer than would be ideal. Normally we're not fans of squat wedges or squat boards or whatever, mainly because if you look at some of them, they're insanely priced. But this is probably one of the cases where a squat board would actually, or squat wedge, be much more useful in terms of giving him plenty of options to stand wider. He can select the toe stance he wants to squat in, and he's got full contact underneath his foot. And like even some of the plates he seems to be standing on looks to be one with, I can't tell, but it looks like there's a lip on the edge.
Yeah, it does look like that.
Even not great again. So you've either got a smooth edge or you've got a lip, whereas that squat wedge is probably going to give you a better option. It's going to be made of material. It's going to be kind of baffled, so you've got a bit more grip on it. So there's probably a better option. Now, Sam seems like someone who just doesn't care that much, but he's also super diligent with his training and his logistics by the looks of things. So it probably would be a better option is to use that. And if you're using a similar scenario for a quad hypertrophy, it's actually not a bad idea. It's just that when you're doing heels elevated zombie squats, you could use 2 different plates, which would probably be better than one. And the weight is generally light enough where, you're going to be able to control it, no problem. There's no issue. There's also the issue, of course, with super heavy weight, the plate's slipping. So it is very, very prudent just to, you don't want 260 to come crashing down.
Absolutely not.
Crashing down. So there's a lot of reasons why it's a bit better options, but the principle of the squat makes perfect sense. Now, here is crazy. We've had Kamari Copeland on the show before. He seems to be on the Navy team by the looks of things in terms of American football. Insane athlete, 635 pounds, which is 288 pounds for a triple. And holy moly macaroni, is this ridiculous.
Holy explosives, Batman.
Holy depth as well.
These squats are absolutely amazing.
Yes.
That, like, sometimes you'd see a bar, like the really, really cheap barbells whipping like that. To be honest, I don't think that's a cheap barbell. I think that's 280 kilos being moved.
88 kilos.
288 kilos being moved faster than it's probably ever been moved in its entire life.
Yeah, it's not a cheap barbell, that's just really heavy.
Yeah, it's absolutely great. A couple of things here. So obviously when we look at kind of football teams training or big teams of people, we see a lot of hype, a lot of people around them. And sometimes we can see a lot of spotters kind of stepping in from around the place. One thing I actually like here is you just have one spotter in behind and then the lads out to the side are stepping back slightly. So we've spotter bars in the side. That means the bar isn't going to crush him excessively when he's on the ground if he does fall underneath it. We then have somebody underneath his armpits, which isn't ideal, but does offer some support. And then we don't have a huge group of people around them. Everybody kind of half grabbing, but everybody, in this case, all three lads seem to know their work or their particular role very, very well.
Yes. So, again, our preference is always bumper plates and learn to dump the barbell. Now, that's not always possible, obviously, for very strong powerlifters or home gym training. So spotter bars is probably the next safest thing. Spotters, if done regularly and by people you know and trust, are fantastic, but it's so inconsistent that sometimes spotters can actually make things much worse or really mess up a lift. So everyone needs to be clear on what's going on, what's going to happen in case of failure. You know, most good athletes, when they get to this kind of weight, especially if you're an upright torso like that, can just sit in the bottom for a huge amount of time. It's not comfortable, and then just gradually dump that barbell off their back. But 3 spotters is obviously very, very useful, and there's realistically nothing's going to go wrong here, but it might mess up a lift when there's no need to. But I'm sure they're training regularly with each other, so there's probably no issue in this case. I'm just talking in general terms. I'm sure that's fine. Here we've got Cameron Rogers, you've seen on the show before. We've done a full video on her lifting. This seems to be 85 kilos for the kind of throwers snatch complex. Now, we normally see them doing it with kind of hang power cleans. Now, that the result is the same with a snatch or a power clean. The focus is similar. It's a heavyweight moving fast, full extension, relaxing, and getting under as fast as possible in a really short time frame. So the benefits are there for the snatch as the power clean. Yeah, a couple of things here that I think are noteworthy. A lot of time throwers get kind of tired with the same brush where they say, oh, they're heaving on the barbell too much. Maybe they have some non-ideal upper body positions. Maybe they shoot their feet way out to the side. In this case, in Cameron's case, she has very accurate foot placement. A small bit of a jump back, but that's no massive deal. She has very consistent upper body positions across the kind of heaving pulls and across the main snatch or hang snatch itself. And the speed of her pulling underneath the bar is absolutely insanely impressive. So a lot of the time when we do get the throwers kind of really wrenching on the bar, they'll stay in that upright over pulling position for a bit too long. In this case, very nice extension, very fast extension, and then a great pull under. Sticking with throwers, we've got Valerie Allman. So this wasn't posted to Valerie's page, so Runners Universe had this on their Instagram, so I'm not exactly sure when it's from, but it's 4 sets of 3 at 102.5 power clean from the floor. So Valerie obviously has an exceptionally good power clean, but also in terms of technique, so she's super smooth, good acceleration, keeps the barbell close, really tidy catch position, fast under the barbell, all of the right things you're looking for in a power clean for sport, or just in general, to be honest. Yeah, it's very, very good. 102.5 kilos, so I'm not quite sure what weight Valerie is, but we've seen her doing to the 120 kilos in the power clean, so we're very interested to see if this is recent and if she's gunning for a new PB soon. The thing I like to see about these as well is it's not a kind of muscle clean. A lot of time when we have athletes doing power cleans from the floor or hang power cleans,
they catch the bar incredibly high. In this case, you'll see Valerie actually doing a great job of pulling herself under, and it's much more of a quarter squat, or even a bit deeper than a quarter squat, to catch those powers in. I think there's big advantages to doing that, rather than just concentrating on pulling that bar as high as possible. Concentrating on pulling and catching in that slight squat position is just so much more beneficial.
Next, we've got Rusty Witt, I think the coach is posting one of the lifters. So Shadray is doing this 585 pound deadlift. So they are a football team. Now, 585 pounds is 265 kilos, but it's a very, 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 very tiny deadlift.
Yeah, what I really like here is the upper back position and the head position as he's setting up. A lot of the time with athletes, particularly athletes who are training in a group, like if you train in a CrossFit gym, they'll tend to have their head down when they're setting up for the deadlift, and they'll be thinking about this neutral neck position all the time. When we're deadlifting as athletes or deadlifting as weightlifters, basically anybody who's not a competition powerlifter, you want that head to be looking pretty much straight forward. I much prefer the eye line to be above the line of parallel with your eyes. So maybe if you're training in a standard gym with 12-foot ceilings, then you're looking at where the ceiling meets the wall out in front of you, and that just keeps your upper back in such a better position. There's a massive difference between deadlifting to be the most efficient deadlifter possible in competition and deadlifting for sports performance or athletic performance. And in this case, we see a really, really good example of what most athletes should be doing with their deadlift.
I'm pretty sure I said a 585 power clean, which of course no one in the world can ever do that. But it is a very, very, very tiny deadlift, and it's just like, it doesn't always have to be massive, crazy weights, although it is great when it happens. But this is good, honest training weight.
The last thing I'll say about this, and this is a noteworthy point for the football players, the soccer players, rugby players, hockey players watching this, and we've seen some people commenting on it being, why is he wearing weightlifting shoes doing the squat? So our weightlifting shoes or squatting shoes doing the deadlift. So obviously there's advantages to having some extra dorsiflexion, the ability to bring our knees forward over our toes when we're squatting and things like that. But most of the time people will see that as a negative when we go to pull something off the floor. In this case, for this athlete, it might allow him to get into a better position. It might allow him to keep his knees forward in that setup and have a flatter back because of that. Or it might just allow him to target his quads a bit more and get some more leg development done in his pull rather than in a squat or something along those lines. So it's not always a hard no or a hard yes to be wearing your weightlifting shoes when you're deadlifting. There are always applications where certain things can be beneficial.
I thought you were going to say, why is it all green? I know they're Green Valley or whatever, but it is wrong to have 20 kilo plates that are green.
No, they should be 50 kilo plates.
Actually, that's true. Here we've got Michael, well, I'm not sure what...
Kennelly, I think.
We would say Kennelly, but I'm not sure that's what. Michael is competing for Team Hong Kong, and these hurdles are insane. I hope he says Michael Kennelly, but... outrageous. The height he's getting, the springiness he's getting, the short ground contact time he's getting, the sequence of jumps he's getting. So he's doing this multiple jumps in a row, and it just looks so casual.
He reminds me of baby Clarence.
He does actually a little bit, yeah.
This is the most impressive jumping thing I've seen this year. And I know we're early into the year, it's only 2 months in, but this is insanely impressive. I actually don't think most people watching this realise how high he's really jumping.
Yes.
A lot of us are used to seeing box jumps where people are jumping up to the height of their shoulders, or they're jumping up to chest height or chin height onto a box. He's jumping so much higher than any of that because he's not tucking his legs up underneath him. You'll see his legs could pretty much extend straight down as he's passing over any of those hurdles. Are those hurdles 1 meter high or 1.1 meter high? Like, it is insane heights of jumping.
What's very interesting is, recently we had a reel where we're talking about a lifter or an athlete doing a jump from a counter movement mat or from a time of flight recording mat, so to measure how high he was jumping, and everyone was like, oh, he's bending his knees the way down. But you can't jump that high and just land with straight legs. It's the most painful thing. That's the dumbest thing ever. They're shock absorbers. Your lower body, your Achilles tendon, your calves, your knee extensors, your hips are all shock absorbers when you come down for a jump, and then them going into flexion is how you absorb that force and then redistribute it into a jump again. And you can see him just kind of landing into that quarter jump, and just taking off. Now, the impressive thing is obviously the higher you're jumping, the more forces you have to change direction from. So it's almost like a vicious cycle of the higher you're jumping, the harder it is to jump higher. But there's also the benefits he's getting.
Yeah, it's so impressive.
There's also parts of where I'm from where you'd say Michael Keneally.
Keneally,
yeah. So that's why I'd really like to know how Michael says that name.
Michael will be known as a leper down here because his leap is so good.
Yeah, not a person who suffers from a skin disease. Thanks for watching the Seek Strength News Show. As always, really appreciative of everyone who sends in stuff for the new show. So the system for tagging is still broken, so please do keep DMing us. We look through every single one of those every single week, and it makes a huge difference to the quality of the new show, because obviously thousands of people are going to see a lot more than just the two of us on the big wide world of internet. Also, apologies if we sound a little bit strange. Both of us have been struck down by the continuous sickness that everybody seems to be getting, and we're getting different iterations of it at the moment. And there's been lots of nasal sprays in the office trying to clear it up so not sound like weirdos on mics, but I think it's probably that case.
We're doing our best.
Now, you can do your best by supporting us and getting the app on Seek Strength on iOS and Android. Just two unwell fellas trying to bring you a new show.
As we're talking about the app as well, we have the Horse Program 2.0 coming out this week, and the conditioning programs, their first iterations. So the first two conditioning programs are going to be running for conditioning. So in this case, you'll need a distance of about 400 meters. So that is any field, so any soccer pitch, rugby pitch, football pitch, any baseball diamond, any area like that will be absolutely perfect for doing that running on. And then the second conditioning program we have is a rowing conditioning program. So you using any rowing erg, obviously commonly we'll see the Concepts 2s being used, but any rowing erg where you have a 500 meter split time, you can use that. They'll be out in the middle of this week.
You know what? I actually rescind that word supporting. I hate when people say that, because I want you to get the app because it's a good product for you in your training, not because you feel like you need to support us, because support would imply that even though it's a terrible product, you're still do it because you like watching us. That's not what our products are for. Our products are for you to have good training. You know, they are a standalone. It wouldn't matter if it was us making it. The product is good. So don't do it because you want to support us. Do it because you need better training, which it is.